June 1946. A 19-year-old blonde girl walks into 20th Century Fox Studios. She's nervous, excited, terrified. This is her chance, her escape from poverty, from foster homes, from being nobody. The studio executives look at her with calculating eyes. They've seen the screen tests, they know what they have. A face the camera loves, a body audiences will pay to see, a desperate girl who will sign anything for a chance at stardom. They slide a contract across the desk. 7 years, $75 per week. She reads it quickly. She doesn't understand half the legal language, doesn't know what she's really signing, but she signs because what choice does she have? $75 per week is more money than she's ever made. It feels like wealth, like security, like salvation. She doesn't know yet that she's just signed away her freedom, her future, her right to control her own image and career. The executives smile as she signs. They know what they've acquired. A product, a commodity, an asset that will make them millions while they pay her pennies. This is Marilyn Monroe's introduction to Hollywood, and this is how the exploitation began. To understand how thoroughly Hollywood exploited Marilyn, you need to understand the studio system. In the 1940s and 1950s, Hollywood wasn't like it is today. It was controlled completely by 5 major studios: MGM, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, Paramount, Columbia. These weren't just production companies, they were empires. They owned the soundstages where movies were filmed, the equipment, the cameras, the costumes, the makeup departments, the writers who created scripts, the directors who filmed them, and most importantly, they owned the theaters where movies played. Vertical integration, control everything from creation to consumption, and right in the middle of this machine were the actors, the products, the commodities, the things being manufactured and sold. The studio system worked through contracts, long-term contracts that bound actors to a single studio for years. 7-year contracts were standard, some were even longer. An actor would sign, and for the duration of that contract the studio owned them, not literally. This wasn't slavery, but functionally it was close. The studio paid a weekly salary. In exchange they controlled everything: what films the actor made, what roles they played, what publicity events they attended, what they wore in public, who they dated, who they married. Their entire public image belonged to the studio. The actor couldn't work for another studio without permission, couldn't turn down roles, couldn't negotiate for better terms. And if an actor became difficult, refused roles, demanded changes, the studio had a weapon: suspension without pay. They'd freeze the actor's career. No work, no money, no ability to work elsewhere. And here's the cruelest part. The time spent suspended was added to the end of the contract. So a 7-year contract could become 8 years, 9 years, 10 years if the actor kept fighting. It was designed to break resistance, to enforce compliance, to keep actors powerless. Marilyn signed her first contract in August 1946, $75 per week. In today's money, that's about $600 weekly, $31,000 annually. It sounds reasonable until you understand what Fox was getting in return. They owned her image completely, could use her in any film, any publicity, any photo shoot, could loan her to other studios and keep the money, could merchandise her face without paying her extra. They owned Marilyn Monroe for 7 years for $31,000 per year. It was highway robbery dressed up as opportunity. Fox put her in tiny roles, background work, testing her, seeing if audiences responded. She worked hard, showed up early, did everything asked of her. She was grateful just to be there. But after 1 year, Fox dropped her contract. She wasn't developing fast enough, wasn't worth the continued investment of $75 weekly. They'd used her for a year, decided she wasn't profitable enough, and discarded her. Marilyn was devastated. She was 20 years old. She'd thought she'd escaped poverty, escaped being unwanted, but Hollywood had just taught her the same lesson foster care taught her. She was disposable, temporary, useful only as long as she provided value. She went back to modeling, back to poverty, back to desperation. In 1949, photographer Tom Kelly offered her $50 to pose nude for a calendar. She needed money for rent, for food, for survival. She posed naked on red velvet. Those photographs would later become historic, the foundation of Playboy magazine. Hugh Hefner bought the rights for $500 and put Marilyn on the first Playboy cover in December 1953. That issue sold 54,000 copies. Playboy became an empire worth hundreds of millions, all built on Marilyn's naked body. Hefner made a fortune, built a mansion, created a brand. Marilyn got her original $50, nothing more, no royalties, no percentage, no ongoing compensation. She sold her naked body for $50 and someone else made millions off it. That's exploitation in its purest form. But in 1948, Marilyn got another chance. Columbia Pictures signed her to a 6-month contract, $125 per week, slightly better than Fox. She appeared in one film, Ladies of the Chorus. She was good, critics noticed, but Columbia didn't renew. Another studio, another rejection, another year of her life used and discarded. She was learning that Hollywood would take what it wanted and give nothing back unless forced. She was learning that her value to them was far greater than what they'd pay her. She was learning that this was a system designed to exploit. 1950, everything changed. Agent Johnny Hyde saw her and fell in love. He was 53, she was 23, 30-year age difference, but Hyde was powerful, major agent at William Morris. He got her roles, real roles, visible roles, The Asphalt Jungle, All About Eve. Small parts but memorable, audiences noticed her. She had that quality, that thing that made you unable to look away. Hyde knew she was going to be a star. He wanted to marry her. He was dying of heart disease, knew he had months, maybe a year. He wanted to leave her his money, his house, his security. He offered her everything. Financial freedom, no more desperation, no more poverty. Marilyn said no, she didn't love him. She wouldn't marry for money. It's one of the few times in her life she chose integrity over survival. Hyde died in December 1950. His family, who hated Marilyn, made sure she inherited nothing. They banned her from the funeral. She showed up anyway and threw herself on his casket sobbing. She'd lost the one person in Hollywood who helped her without taking something in return. But those small roles worked. 20th Century Fox noticed. They signed her again in May 1951. This time the contract was better. $500 per week. $26,000 annually in today's money. Real money. She was 24 years old and thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they'd value her. They didn't, they just knew how to extract more value from her. They started putting her in bigger roles, more publicity, magazine covers, photo shoots, her face everywhere. Building the Marilyn Monroe brand, and the money started rolling in for the studio. Her films became hits, massive hits. Niagara in 1953, $6 million gross. Marilyn's salary for the entire film, $18,000. The studio made $6 million, she made $18,000, that's 0.3%. A third of 1% of the value she created. The film was sold on her image, her face on every poster, her body in those tight dresses, her star power filling theaters. But she got 0.3% of the revenue. The rest went to the studio, the producers, the distributors, the executives, everyone except the woman who created the value. Then came Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Summer 1953. This was the film that made Marilyn a superstar, that pink dress. Diamonds are a girl's best friend, the image that would define an era. The film grossed $5.3 million domestically, over $50 million in today's money. Marilyn's salary $18,000. Again, flat fee, no bonuses, no profit participation, no percentage of merchandise or soundtrack sales. Nothing. The studio made $5 million. She made $18,000. The math is obscene, criminal, but it was legal, it was the system. This is how Hollywood worked. Extract maximum value, pay minimum compensation. How to Marry a Millionaire. Released November 1953. Another massive hit. $8 million gross, $80 million in today's money. 3 female leads, but Marilyn was the draw, her name above the title, her face selling tickets. She made $18,000, the same flat fee she'd been making. The studio made $8 million, she made $18,000, 0.2% of the gross. She created tens of millions in value, they paid her thousands. And she couldn't negotiate because she was under contract. The studio owned her image, owned her labor, owned the profits from her work. She was legally bound to accept whatever they decided to pay her. Marilyn started to understand. She wasn't stupid despite playing dumb blondes. She could do basic math. She could see other stars making more. She could see her value. She started asking questions. Why am I making so little when my films make so much? Why can't I choose my roles? Why do I have to do every script you hand me? Why can't I have approval over directors? The answers weren't satisfying because you're under contract, because we own you, because this is the system. If you don't like it, we'll suspend you. We'll destroy your career, we'll blacklist you, we'll make sure you never work again. That was always the threat. Comply or be destroyed, accept exploitation or lose everything. 1954, The 7-Year Itch. This was the film that created the most iconic image in cinema history. Marilyn standing over the subway grate, white dress billowing, that moment, that image, it's been reproduced millions of times, on posters, T-shirts, coffee mugs, calendars, art prints, advertisements. That image has generated hundreds of millions in revenue over 70 years. Marilyn was paid $1,500 per week during filming. About $15,000 total for the role. The film grossed $6 million in 1955, $60 million today. She made 15,000.25%. But here's the real exploitation: that image, that dress, that moment. The studio owned it, they licensed it, sold it, made fortunes off it. Marilyn got her flat fee and nothing more. The most famous image of her, the image that defines her legacy, she made $15,000 from it and the studio made millions. Still makes millions. The exploitation continues decades after her death. After divorcing Joe DiMaggio, Marilyn did something revolutionary. She fled to New York, refused to return to Hollywood, refused to make more films under her existing contract. She formed Marilyn Monroe Productions in January 1955 with photographer Milton Green. It was radical. Actresses didn't start production companies, didn't take control of their careers. The studio system didn't allow it, but Marilyn was done being exploited. She was willing to sacrifice her career rather than continue accepting pennies for millions of dollars worth of value. Fox was furious, threatened to sue, threatened to blacklist her, threatened to destroy her, but Marilyn held firm. She stayed in New York for 18 months, studied acting with Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio, refused to return on Fox's terms. The standoff cost both sides. Fox lost their biggest star, their most profitable asset. Marilyn lost income, lost momentum, lost opportunities, but she wouldn't break. This was about dignity, about respect. About being treated as an artist rather than a commodity. Finally, Fox blinked. They needed her more than she needed them. In December 1955, they negotiated a new contract. This one was much better. $100,000 per film, director approval on some projects, script consultation, profit participation on films produced by her company. It was revolutionary, one of the best contracts for any actress at that time. Marilyn had fought the studio system and won, partially. She still wasn't getting fair compensation. 100,000 sounds like a lot. It was a lot in 1955, but her films made millions. She was still getting a tiny fraction of the value she created, but it was progress. It was proof that fighting back could work. Bus Stop in 1956. Her first film under the new contract. She's brilliant in it, vulnerable, real, the performance she'd been studying for. Critics loved it. The film grossed $4.7 million. She made $100,000, 2% of the gross. Still exploitation, still unfair, but better than 0.3%. Progress measured in fractional percentages of what she deserved. The Prince and the Showgirl in 1957. This was a Marilyn Monroe Productions film. She had more control, more creative input. She co-starred with Laurence Olivier. He also directed. The production was difficult. Olivier treated her terribly, dismissed her acting method, humiliated her on set. The film made $4.3 million. Under her production deal, she made significantly more than her usual fee, maybe $200,000 or more with profit participation. Finally, fair compensation approaching what she deserved. But the experience was so traumatic, dealing with Olivier's condescension and cruelty, that she never wanted to produce again. She'd fought for control and got it, but the process nearly broke her. Some Like It Hot in 1959, one of the greatest comedies ever made. Marilyn is perfect in it. The film grossed $25 million. In today's money, that's over $250 million. Marilyn made $300,000, 1.2% of the gross, better than before, real money, life-changing money for most people, but still. The studio made $24,700,000, she made $300,000. The directors, producers, distributors, theatre owners, everyone made millions. The woman audiences paid to see made a fraction. And this was with her improved contract. This was after she'd fought for better terms. Imagine what she'd been making before. Let's Make Love in 1960, $5 million gross. She made $300,000, 6%, getting better, slowly, painfully, but still not fair, still not approaching the actual value she created. The film was sold on her name, her presence, her star power. Without her it wouldn't have made half that much. She was the value, but she got 6%. The Misfits in 1961. Arthur Miller wrote it for her, her last completed film, $3 million domestic gross. She made $300,000, 10%, the best percentage she ever got. And it still wasn't fair because she was the entire reason the film got made. Her star power, her marriage to Miller, her presence. Without Marilyn Monroe, The Misfits doesn't exist. But she got 10% while everyone else split 90%, still exploitation, just less extreme. Throughout her career, Marilyn fought constantly for fair treatment. Every negotiation was a battle, every contract was a war. The studios labeled her difficult, ungrateful, a troublemaker. They leaked negative stories to the press. Marilyn is always late. Marilyn is impossible to work with. Marilyn is on drugs. They destroyed her reputation while making millions off her image. The woman who made them hundreds of millions was portrayed as a problem because she dared to ask for fair compensation, because she dared to want control over her career, because she refused to be exploited quietly. The final insult came in 1962. Something's got to give. Marilyn was struggling, depression, pills, the Kennedy affair collapsing, her marriage to Arthur Miller over. She was barely functional. She missed 12 days of filming in the first month. The production fell behind schedule, behind budget. Fox executives panicked. The studio was bleeding money on Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor. That film was $40 million over budget. A disaster. Fox needed a scapegoat. On June 7, 1962, Marilyn's 36th birthday, they fired her, blamed her for the production failure, sued her for $500,000 for breaching her contract. The woman who made them hundreds of millions over 16 years, the biggest star in Hollywood, they fired her on her birthday and sued her for ruining them financially. Here's what makes it unforgivable. Elizabeth Taylor's Cleopatra went $40 million over budget. Taylor was constantly sick, stopped production repeatedly, started an affair with Richard Burton that became a scandal, but Fox didn't sue Elizabeth Taylor, didn't fire her, didn't destroy her reputation. Why? Because Taylor had power, a better contract, leverage. Marilyn had none of that, so she became the scapegoat, the difficult woman who destroyed everything, the blonde who couldn't show up on time. Fox's financial problems weren't her fault, they were management failures, Cleopatra's disaster, bad decisions at the executive level, but Marilyn was vulnerable, damaged, easy to blame, so they blamed her, destroyed her, and 2 months later she was dead. The exploitation didn't end with her death, it accelerated. Fox owned her image, her likeness, footage from unfinished films. They released compilations, sold her image to advertisers, licensed her face for merchandise, made millions more off her death than they'd paid her in life. Dead, she couldn't negotiate, couldn't demand respect, couldn't fight back. Dead, she was the perfect product, frozen in time at 36, forever young, forever beautiful, forever available to be sold. Today, Marilyn Monroe's estate generates $4 million to $5 million annually in licensing revenue. Her image is everywhere. T-shirts, posters, coffee mugs, phone cases, makeup lines, fashion collections. Everyone makes money off Marilyn Monroe, except Marilyn Monroe. She died with assets worth $800,000 and debts of $40,000. That's what 16 years as Hollywood's biggest star left her. $800,000 in assets, after making studios hundreds of millions. After creating an image that would generate profits for decades, they left her nearly broke, addicted to pills, destroyed mentally, dead at 36. The studio system Marilyn fought eventually collapsed. Actors gained more power in the 1960s and 70s, better contracts, profit participation, real compensation approaching their actual value, but that came too late for Marilyn. She was part of the generation that was exploited so thoroughly it forced change. Her suffering, her fights, her death, they helped break the system, but she didn't live to see it. She died trapped in contracts that treated her as property. This is the story Hollywood doesn't tell, not the romance, not the glamour, not the icon. This is the financial exploitation, the theft of value, the system designed to extract everything from actors and give back only enough to keep them working. Marilyn Monroe created hundreds of millions in value. She was paid thousands in return. She fought for fair treatment and was called difficult. She died while the people who exploited her counted their money. She was a worker who created enormous value and was paid a fraction of what she was worth, a woman ground up by an industry that saw her as a commodity. $75 per week, that's what they first paid her. By the end she was making $300,000 per film, decent money, but still a fraction of her value, still exploited, still used. The executives retired wealthy, the shareholders made fortunes, and Marilyn Monroe died broke and alone. That's the real story. The woman who created millions and was given pennies, who fought for dignity and was destroyed for it. This is the story of Marilyn Monroe and the studio system that used her, broke her, and made millions off her corpse. This is Marilyn Files episode 14, The Exploitation, the money they stole, the value they extracted, the woman they used until she broke. and the millions they made while paying her pennies.